Gentlemen and bonkers of all ladies, it's time to smack them monsters upside that thing which contains their brain. The head, that's the one. Hammer has been completely reinvented in Title Update 2 for Monster Hunter Wilds, gaining 2 whole new offsets within its moveset, an offset follow-up attack, and a whole bunch of other little buffs as well that have made it feel just so much better than ever in Monster Hunter Wilds. If you haven't enjoyed this weapon in the game before, I highly recommend giving it another try now, but either way, today we're here to talk about the new builds in town for Hammer in Title Update 2. If you're wondering why this one has taken so long, I have been doing a lot of math, a lot of testing, a bunch of different combinations, because some of the results surprised me a fair bit, and I wanted to be absolutely sure that they were correct. So today, I'm going to be sharing 3 different endgame damage optimized hammer builds, not quite to the point of speedrun specific sets, but simply builds that the average player can get an absolute butt ton of damage out of. The first set will be highest effective raw, which is the number that you get when combining all of your skills and your weapon stats to sort of equalize out all of the different bonuses in a comparable way. The second build is the highest EFR in a less finicky way, avoiding using a specific set bonus and a skill that a lot of people aren't a fan of. And then the third set will be something quite special, a Seregios hammer based sets for all of you invulnerability frame evade fans out there, as hammer is actually one of the weapons that can actually get uniquely good use out of this weapon in the right setup. And it may sound like a bit of a meme, but trust me, it is powerful as all hell, just as much as the other two. First up then, let's talk weapons for the first 2 sets, as only the one specific set is built around the Steve hammer. For the others though, the best options are still artian hammers, specifically element hammers to match whatever element your target monster is weakest to, and the ideal rolls on it should be 1 sharpness boost and 4 attack boost. Some people prefer to run 2 sharpness boost instead for pure sharpness comfort, and it's honestly only like a 2% damage loss if you do want to do that, but that's entirely up to you. However, I will be doing the math for hammer today as a 225 attack artian weapon, as that is comfortable with the decorations that I'll be recommending. If you don't have a perfect artian weapon, it's worth mentioning as well, the Zoshia hammer is actually entirely viable, it's not bad at all, and it is generally the best non-artian weapon in most setups. First up then, the proper top damage meta set, and this one has honestly stayed the same pretty much since Arch-Tempered Raidao dropped into the game. It is Arch Ray, helmet, gloves, and waist, along with gore magala, chest, and legs, beta. This combines some really potent set bonuses as well as the Lord Soul group bonus, which is just 5% increased damage at the cost of lower defense until the guts effect is triggered, which is basically a free card avoidance. At which point, if you do trigger guts, it will flip and give you extra defense but lose the damage increase. But that means if you are playing well, it's just a permanent 5% damage increase. That combined with the Raidao 2-set bonus, which is longer latent power duration, and the Gore Magala 2-set bonus with 3 ranks of antivirus, which gives us 25% affinity together after you've cleared the frenzy, which will generate automatically when near large monsters. For the talisman on this setup, we've got the counter charm for 3 ranks of counter strike, and counter strike is just an extremely powerful skill, especially as hammer is a weapon that now has 3 different options for offsetting, and that means that you should be offsetting quite frequently. Counter strike as a skill is something that can actually trigger from offsets too, as well as the natural way of doing it too, which is just when being hit in combat, which everyone does sometimes. So as a result, we count counter strike as having around 80% uptime for hammer, which makes it a really solid skill for the slot space that it takes. Then we have our mantle, and the technically correct option is corrupted mantle, as it is a proper reliable damage increase, but I am a really big fan of Rocksteady mantle myself anytime that you are using counter strike in a build, as you can activate the counter strike effect by being hit with Rocksteady mantle on, which happens without you even being flinched. And on top of that, Rocksteady is just a 60% damage reduction in general now, which makes it very good and comfortable to play around. For our weapon decorations, then we've got Critical Boost 3 and Critical Boost 2 for our full 5 ranks of Critical Boost. Then the third slot is 3 ranks of Razor Sharp. This combined with 1 rank of whatever element your hammer is to increase the element attack. Or if you find yourself wanting a little bit more sharpness, you can always run Razor Sharp with Handicraft as the bonus skill for the equivalent of an extra 20 hits of sharpness over some element attack. For our armor decorations then, we have 4 Tenderizer Jewels in here to give us the full 5 ranks of Weakness Exploit in total. We have 1 Chain Jewel as well for the first rank of Burst, which is extremely important. It's the most valuable rank of that skill. And then we also have 2 Sane Jewels to bring Antivirus up to a full 3 ranks as well. Then we have 1 spare 1-slot socket within the build too, which you can use for running the Shockproof Jewel in multiplayer to avoid friendly flinching, or for solo you can instead run Stamina Management with helped with maximum might uptime, so it's technically a damage increase, or you can use some sort of defensive skill instead. The full skill list on this set then is 5 critical boost, 3 razor sharp, 1 element attack matching your weapon or handicraft, 5 weakness exploit, 3 counter strike, 3 maximum might, and it's worth mentioning that maximum might will generally only be active for around 50% of your mighty charge slams. So the skill has less value than with most weapons, but the armor it's on is so efficient otherwise that we just sort of have to have it anyway. So yes, I know it won't be active all the time without Fulgur Anjanath 2-piece, but even without that, this build as a whole is worth more than running Fulgur Anjanath 2-piece instead of the gore pieces. We also have 3 antivirus, 2 latent power, 2 evade window, which when paired with tumbler high food skill is the equivalent of a full 5 evade window, which is lovely, 2 evade extender, 1 burst, 1 stamina surge, 1 flinch free, and then whatever you would put in the 1 slot socket, along with the Ray Dow 2-set bonus, Gore Magala 2-set bonus, and the Lord Soul group skill bonus as well. For the math on this one then, 225 attack on the perfect Artian weapon, add on an extra 5% of that number for the Lord Soul attack bonus, up to 236.25. For the record, I'm rounding for the displayed numbers generally, but keeping the full digits in the calculations themselves. We then add on another 20 for rank 3 Counter-Strike, counted at 80% uptime. We add 5 for the first hit bonus from Burst, which should be at nearly 100% uptime, even if the full 5 hit bonus will be relatively rare, but that puts us at 261.25. 5% base weapon affinity, 30% for hitting a weak spot with rank 5 weakness exploit, plus 30% from maximum might, 25% from antivirus combined with the Gore Magala 2-set bonus, plus another 13% from 2 ranks of latent power, counted at 65% uptime, for an average affinity of 103%, just slightly over the cap. This means that we get the full 40% damage bonus from our critical boost 5, which we then apply to our attack to reach 365.75. Increase that by another 32% for the white sharpness damage modifier, and you get a final total of 482.8 effective raw, which is not bad by any means. That said, some people don't like dealing with the defense debuff of the Lord Soul group bonus, or the inconsistency of latent power as a skill, as it can have wildly different value depending on your hunt timer due to the duration of the skill and how long it takes you to then activate it afterwards. So our second set is going to be the actually highest effective raw that you can hit without Arch-Tempered Radau armor, which does actually have some new armor pieces from Title Update 2 in it. This one also uses Artian weapons as the actual weapons, and the armor set is Legiacris Beta head, chest, and gloves, and then Gore Magala Beta waist and legs. This gives us the Gore Magala 2-set bonus again, which combines with antivirus for a big chunk of bonus affinity, and it also gives us the Legiacris 2-set bonus 2, which gives us an occasional pop of bonus damage when we hit the monster, which will pop up as white numbers on the screen. When this happens, you get 15% bonus affinity for 20 seconds afterwards, which then goes on cooldown for around 30 seconds before you can get that buff again. We're counting this then as being 40% uptime because of those timers, which makes it be a 6% affinity bonus on average throughout the hunt. It's still not a bad effect by any means, and the extra damage pops are a bonus as well, especially because the armor pieces themselves just have great skills on them to begin with. For this one then, we have the agitator talisman being used in this setup, and the mantle is the same as the previous setup as well. Corrupted mantle for the technically correct option, but rocksteady is my personal actual recommendation. For weapon decorations then, it's the same as the first set, full critical boost within the actual weapon itself, and then razor sharp either with the element that matches the weapon or with 1 rank of handicraft instead. For armor decorations, you want 3 tenderizer jewels to finish off weakness exploit to rank 5, 3 counter jewels to get full 3 ranks of counter strike itself, 1 mighty jewel to finish off maximum might to 3 ranks as well, 1 chain jewel to give you that all important first rank of burst, then 2 sane jewels to push antivirus to 3 ranks, and then you have 2 spare 1 slot sockets to do whatever you want with. Again, shockproof is great for multiplayer, or for solo you want stamina management for help keeping maximum might uptime, or you can put in defensive skills instead. Your choice of what is most important to you with these. Full skill list then is 5 critical boost, 3 razor sharp, 1 element attack or handicraft, 5 weakness exploit, 3 counter strike, 3 maximum might, 3 stamina surge, which helps with maximum might as well, 3 antivirus, 2 constitution, 2 agitator, then whatever you have in your spare 1 slot sockets, 1 burst, 1 flinch free, and then Legiacris 2-set, Gore Magala 2-set, and actually the affinity sliding group bonus 2 for the rare occasions that will activate as well. For the math on this set then, we'll go a little bit quicker this time as you had the first going on as an example, 225 attack, plus 20 for counter strike at 80% uptime, plus 5.2 for 2 agitator at 65% uptime, plus 5 for burst, which brings us to 255.2. 5% base weapon affinity on an Artian weapon, 30% affinity from weakness exploit, 30% affinity from maximum might, 25% from gore magala 2 set combined with 3 ranks of antivirus, and then an extra 3.25% from agitator 2 at 65% uptime, as well as the 6% from Legiacris 2 set at 40% uptime. This gives us a combined total of 99.25% affinity. With 5 critical boost, a critical hit does 40% more damage than a non-crit, so a 99.25% chance of a 40% damage increase is an average damage increase of 39.7%. Increase our attack by that amount, and you get 356.5. Increase by another 32% for the white sharpness modifier, and you get 470.6 effective raw. To compare these two sets so far then, the Gore Ray mix set is 482.8 EFR, but if we don't count on latent power at all for the affinity, that would instead have it be 469 EFR. This second set without Ray or latent power is 470.6 effective raw, so that means if you really do not like the debuff part of the raid out group bonus or latent power as a skill, it is very much reasonable to make an exchange and move over to this set, but the Ray and Gore mix set is still stronger as a set on average. That brings us then to our final build, which I'm labeling as the fun build, but as you will see when we get to the math, you don't have to give up a whole lot of damage at all for the fun of it. In Title Update 2, we got Seregios and his weapons, and they are extremely unique for their skill. On Hammer specifically, this skill gives you 4 hits of special sharpness when you roll through an attack with your invulnerability frames. Not every attack that you have uses a full hit of this sharpness, so it is a little bit funky, but you will get used to it through some play. The bonus, however, is notably stronger than pure white sharpness. It is a 40% damage increase instead of the 32% increase from white sharpness, and it also does not consume any white sharpness while it's being used. So you can sort of think of it as a sharpness bar extender as well, on top of the other effects. First, we have a new combo in Title Update 2 that is evade into charge step, and then you almost immediately get to charge level 2 for the uppercut, which then lets you trigger it to do the attack, which is now an offset. That means that combo is 2 evading actions in a row that both work to trigger blade scale honing or adrenaline rush, and then an offset to follow it. So it's a super safe combo that has great synergy with this concept. Then add in the fact that Hammer is one of the only weapons that doesn't really have a specific weapon skill that it needs covered anymore. I used to be a really big advocate for focus as a skill on Hammer, but now we have 2 offsets that are on mid-charge levels, meaning that focus actually gives you shorter windows to use those offsets within. So yes, focus is technically a damage increase on like a training dummy, but in actual practice, I view focus properly as a negative for Hammer now. And so the reduced decoration space in the Seregios Hammer is actually not that bad for this weapon at all. For anyone genuinely wondering as well, I crunched a whole load of numbers around this. This same build is absolutely better with Seregios Hammer than it would be with an Artian Hammer, just because of the inherent crit on the Seregios weapon as well. So this is a pretty unique build where Artian weapons aren't actually the best. That said, let's talk about the armor pieces. This set uses arch-tempered Raidao helmet, gloves, and waist, as well as the Seregios chest piece and legs. This gives us the Lord Soul group bonus, which is an extra 5% of our base weapon attack. It gives us the extended latent power direction on the Raidao 2 set as well, and then we also get the 2 set Seregios bonus, which gives us an extra 50% duration to Adrenaline Rush's damage effect as a base, but then if you iframe roll a second attack during the Adrenaline Rush buff, you get a bonus 15 seconds as well. Adrenaline Rush as a base is 30 seconds, the effect from this in general makes it 45 seconds, the extra 15 seconds can make it up to 60 seconds total. Adrenaline Rush as well then is the skill that gives you increased attack after you roll through an attack with iframe. So this of course pairs very naturally and perfectly with the Seregios Hammer skill, and we get extremely good use out of these two things together. For the talisman in this set then, we are using the counterattack charm for 3 ranks of Adrenaline Rush, because this was actually updated in Title Update 2 to be able to give 3 ranks of the skill, which is extremely high value if you're going for an Adrenaline Rush setup in general, as this lets us get to 5 ranks of the skill relatively cheaply. If you can keep Adrenaline Rush at a high uptime, it is an incredibly potent skill, and Hammer is now a weapon that sort of can when played normally, but when used in a build that also has a Steve Hammer, you just sort of want to adjust your playstyle to seek out these iframe evades more than anything, which then makes Adrenaline Rush way better anyways. Then for your mantle, same rules as the other 2 sets really, Corrupted Mantle is the technically correct damage increase option, but Rocksteady is my personal love, my personal preference. And for those thinking that Evasion Mantle might make sense here, the Evasion Mantle has a really weird effect with Evade Window 5 already being on your set, where it seems to not work properly. Sometimes it feels like you actually have less iframes with the mantle on. Sometimes you dodge through an effect and it doesn't even activate the mantle effect. It's just pretty funky, and at that point you're better off using Corrupted Mantle if you're just after the pure damage. Moving on to decorations then, in this weapon you have two choices. The Training Wheels starter version is 3 handicraft and then 3 critical boost. A lot of the sharpness management in this build comes from rolling through attacks to get the special sharpness bar, which then means that you're not consuming your actual sharpness. If you aren't doing this frequently enough, you will drop out of white sharpness and have to sharpen in the middle of a zone while fighting the monster. The 3 handicraft version of this setup of jewels gives you more leeway when you are learning this playstyle in the beginning, but the proper setup once you get the dodging a bit more down is critical boost 5 and just 1 handicraft. That brings it up to a pretty reasonable amount of sharpness, and if you can dodge semi-regularly, it's more than enough to last for a whole zone. In our armor, this sort of hurts my eyes a bit, so prepare for it, but we do have 2 counter jewels, which are a 2-slot jewel in 3-slot sockets, as well as a 3rd counter jewel in a 2-slot socket where it should be anyways. The skill is just honestly far too good if you are a weapon that can proc it frequently, and with it working with offset so frequently, that definitely includes hammer. We then also have a chain jewel for that all-important first rank of burst, and then you have 2 1-slot sockets to do with as you please. Again, stamina management is technically more damage through higher maximum might uptime, or you can choose to use defensive skills or shockproof if you're taking this in the multiplayer. But another note about this build is that I generally don't recommend using it in multiplayer, because when the monster is targeting other players, it's hard to roll through attacks, which makes it hard to have high uptime on both Adrenaline Rush and the special sharpness bar as well. For the full skill list on this one then, we've got 5 critical boost, 1 handicraft, blade scale honing from the weapon, 5 adrenaline rush, 3 counter strike, 3 maximum might, 2 agitator, 2 latent power, 2 evade window, which again is the perfect amount that when you eat for the tumbler high food skill, you have the equivalent of rank 5 evade window, and that's in this set that has blade scale honing and adrenaline rush, so it's really nice. Then whatever you put in your 1-slot sockets as well, 2 evade extender, 1 weakness exploit, 1 burst, 1 stamina surge, Raid Out 2-set bonus, Seregios 2-set bonus, and then the Lord Soul group bonus as well. For the math on this final set then, 210 attack on the Seregios weapon times 1.05 for the Lord Soul group bonus, up to 220.5 attack. Add on 24 for 5 ranks of Adrenaline Rush, which would normally be 30, but just to be fair, we'll count this as 80% uptime, as it's unlikely we'll be at a full 100% of our attacks, including Adrenaline Rush. Add 20 attack for 3 ranks of Counter-Strike at 80% uptime as well, 5.2 attack for 2 ranks of Agitator at 65% uptime, and then another 5 attack for that 1 rank of burst as well. This brings us up to 274.7. The Seregios hammer has 25% affinity as a base, which is sort of crazy, honestly. Add on 30% for maximum might, 3.25% for level 2 agitator at 65% uptime, 13% for 2 latent power at 65% uptime, and then 5% for 1 rank of weakness exploit for a total of 76.25% affinity. We have full ranks of crit boost, so a 76.25% chance of hitting a 40% bonus damage is an average damage increase of 30.5%. Apply that to our attack and then we get 358.5 after some rounding. Increase it by another 32% for the white sharpness damage modifier, and we get a final effective raw of 473.2 for the white sharpness hits, but we also have to consider special sharpness as well. And special sharpness is a 40% sharpness damage modifier instead of 32% from white, which would instead put our EFR at 501.2 during these special sharpness hits, which is the highest that Hammer has been able to hit outside of like heroic sets in all of Wild so far. That said, for the full comparison, once again, even the white sharpness hits in the Seregios set should actually outdamage the Legriacris build, provided that you are willing to use the alternative playstyle to make it function properly. But it's also worth noting the caveat that adjusting your playstyle to focus more heavily around rolls and evades and charge steps in this way may also lower your damage a touch, even just from lower maximum might uptime if nothing else. As well, it's worth noting that when you're using the Seregios hammer in this set, you don't have element because the Seregios hammer doesn't do element. Obviously, we aren't focusing on element as the main damage source of our build, but that does mean that you are losing that component compared to the Artian weapons. So generally, I'm going to say this is equivalent to the Legriacris gore mix set in power on on average, slightly weaker than the Gore and Ray mix set, but if you can get high uptime on special sharpness for your mighty charge slams especially, because that is your biggest hit, then the balance will slowly tip more and more towards the evasion set actually being really, really good. So the better you are at evading through attacks with iframes, the better the evasion set gets, of course. And if you are good enough, it is just straight up the best option. But that is a pretty big if on this one, which is why we went through a whole 3 builds today instead of just 1. That just about does it for today, and everyone. 3 incredibly optimized hammer sets of different flavors in Title Update 2 to let you bonk those heads as hard as you possibly can, however you want to. I hope you've all enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoy using these builds for yourselves too if you try them out in-game. Like if you liked the video, subscribe to the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.